So I think it is already taken now.
All right, we've got just about 30 seconds before we'll be getting started. So thank you to everybody who's listening in. Our panelists are just having a little chat before the formal start of the event. And then we'll go in. As a reminder, this is a Q&A. This is a community-driven session. So please do post your questions. We've got one so far. I'm sure we'll get some more as well. And we have some prepared questions from before. But please do use that chat. Feel free to introduce yourself, put in any questions you have for the Drupal Association. We have representatives of both staff and the board. So we'll get started, well, pretty much right now, I think. Yeah. So, all right. I'm going to stop sharing this big old slide so you can all see our faces better, and we'll hand it to Adam.
Hello, everybody. I think we should just go around and introduce ourselves so that everybody has a feel for what our roles are, and then we can, and then we'll get going with the Q&A. So obviously, I'll get it started. Hi, my name is Adam Goodman. I am the chair of the board of directors, and in my other life, I'm a professor at Northwestern University. Let's go to Carrie next.
Thanks, Adam. Hi, everybody. I'm Carrie Lucina. I'm the Fund Development Director at the Drupal Association. I've been at the association for going on 6 years. So thanks for everybody for joining us today. It's good to see you virtually. I'll hand it over to Tim.
You could just give like a sentence or two. Yeah, before you give it to Tim, if you could just give like a sentence or two about what your role specifically does.
Oh yeah, sure. So I've got a staff of about 3 people. We manage all of the fund development for the Drupal Association. That includes things like working with our sponsors that help support and make DrupalCon happen. We also work with a large community of Drupal Association supporting partners, so organizations that either use Drupal or want to support the work that we do at the Drupal Association, join that program for visibility and open source and Drupal advocacy. So yeah, we're in the booth also in the exhibit hall. If you want to come find us, look for the big Drupal Association booth, and we'll be live on and off throughout the day if you have more questions about what our staff does.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, you were going to toss it to, I can't remember.
Awesome. So I'm Tim Lennon. My Drupal.org username is Hestenet. You probably know that better than you know my name. I'm the CTO here at the Drupal Association. So I manage the engineering team, including my 3 team members. There's 4 of us in total who work on maintaining Drupal.org itself, all of the subsites across the Drupal.org ecosystem, and all of the sort of support services and infrastructure that keeps the Drupal project running, like the Drupal CI testing, for example. So my team is often in coordination with the Drupal core maintainers to make sure that they have everything they need. And for example, we'll also collaborate with other community groups like the Celebrate Drupal.org team and others who are just trying to get things done within our community. So glad to be here. I will hand it off, since we've gone through staff, I'll hand it to Angie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Angie Sabin. I'm the Director of Finance and Operations. I've been with the Drupal Association for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in August. In my role, I handle all of the finances in terms of budgeting and oversight, reporting, human resources and payroll, and all of the things that go along with that. And then more recently, I've been working with Heather on our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So I'm really excited to kind of more formally make that part of my role this year. Yeah, and I guess in my other life, as Adam put it, I'm a dog mom, and he's sitting next to me snoring. So if you hear that, that's what's up. Yes, I am the intermission DJ payroll. Also, I do payroll. Haha. And I play in a band, and my band's in the playlist somewhere. So find it and hit me up if you can guess which one it is. So anyway, nice to see you all.
Maybe Heather?
I'm Heather Rocker, Executive Director of the Drupal Association. I started with the DA almost a year ago, so it was last summer. And I think I got to see most of you virtually, either at the welcome or right before the Dries note, and had the chance to talk about a lot of the work we're doing. I get to do a lot of different things at the Drupal Association, especially lately, but primarily, I try to take the vision and the strategy from the board side and translate that into operations with the staff side. Do it and try to make everything happen. And I know that the board will talk about this. We don't just look at the next few months, but we look long term and how we need to set up the DA to be successful so the project can be successful. So that's what we focus on. And some of you got to see my son William in the welcome yesterday. He was very excited to be part of DrupalCon. So thanks for letting him be on screen. And I will send it to Adam, our board chair.
I don't think we hit on yet, though. Is that right?
Wait, we have the whole
Gary
rest
said
of the board side, I think. So.
Hi, I'm Audra Martin Merrick. I know a lot of you already. I have been on the board for and I serve as the secretary of the board, and I'm also on the finance and strategic planning committee. And in my day job, I am an independent consultant and my media and publishing. So if you haven't met me yet, I would love to say hello. So find me afterwards. Send me a little networking request. I'll pass over.
Hi, I'm Buddy, calling from Iceland, where I'm attending the first time DrupalCon from Iceland. I think that's really exciting. So it's so nice to see you all here, and I've been having so much fun all week. So I'm the treasurer of the board. I'm also in the finance committee as well as the nomination committee. And otherwise, I live in Germany. I just do vacation in Iceland, where I'm from, but I have a Drupal agency in Germany and been working with Drupal since 2007 now. Community probably for 5 years or so, and having a lot of fun still.
I guess I'll go next. Yeah, I'm Suzanne Dergacheva. I've been on the board now for about 1.5 years, I think. I'm one of the community elected members, and I'm the chair of the Community and Governance Committee, which we have a lot of work we're trying to do with local associations. And I'm in Canada, Montreal, Canada, and I run an agency here, Evolving Web.
Next.
Yeah.
There's somebody named Dries on the screen.
I don't know if yes, I'm Dries. Well, I guess everybody knows me probably, but started Drupal. I'm the project lead for Drupal. I also started the Drupal Association. Actually, I was one of the founding members. I've been on the board ever since, and I help with a variety of different things. I'm primarily active on the executive committee and the nominating committee, but I get pulled into a lot of different things, and then also run a company called Acquia, which I'm sure you've heard about as well, where I'm responsible for product and product marketing, things like that. So that's the short version, and I'm doing this from Boston. Actually, I split my time between Europe and Boston. I'm currently in Boston, and I must say I love this virtual DrupalCon so far. It's been really awesome, and I feel like for the second day of the conference, I haven't felt this healthy ever. Normally, I'm a lot more tired on the second day. So.
Okay. I know we're going to get rolling. Before we start with the Q&A piece, I'm going to take the chair's privilege, which doesn't happen very often, and I just want to extend my thanks and appreciation not only to the board, but I think in a lot of ways even more so to the staff of the Drupal Association. As you know, I sort of caught the first question that was coming through, and it has been just an extraordinarily challenging. I've forgotten how long this has been now. Let's call it, February to today kind of thing. and we have had to be extraordinarily agile, very creative, and rebuild, whole parts of the organization in terms of what our priorities are and how that affects the budget, how we think about staffing, who should be doing what. All of that has essentially been built. And usually, I shouldn't say usually, the DA has always been resourced in a fairly lightweight way. I don't want to say under-resourced, because I don't that infers something that I don't necessarily intend. But we've always operated with a minimal amount of, and so to ask this incredible group to make the kinds of pivots and changes, and I mean, if you just think about pulling off this particular version of DrupalCon, this is like in Drupal Cares. I mean, it's just been an extraordinary several months, and I am just profoundly grateful, both to the board and to the staff, and obviously by extension to the community. Had the community not sort of stood up and said, we believe in a time of real challenge, when everybody was feeling not unreasonably a little, certainly uncertain, maybe insecure about, sort of what's going on with my own organization, with my own employment, that kind of thing, for people to, and business owners to step up and say, we care. It's just been extraordinarily heartening to me, and again, I know to the rest of the board. So let me stop there. And Tim, where are we?
So that, I think, leads very well into the question that you referenced, which was the first question that came into our chat. And again, please go ahead and start spamming in those questions that you have for us. That's what we're going to be filling this session with. But Josh asks, I can't imagine what it's been like for the last 6 months. How has the pandemic situation changed the Drupal Association, perhaps including or beyond those programs Adam just talked about? And have we saved it? Did we raise the money we needed to raise? What happens next?
The last piece of that, of have we saved it? And, Batty is our treasurer, if you kind of want to weigh in, and maybe Angie and Heather too.
Sure, I can start. Of course, like this, from a financial perspective, we are good at the moment. But of course, like we are always, there are certain risks for the future, or how events are going to continue, and so therefore, I think it's good to say that we are just on our toes, and we are, making sure that we are monitoring it really carefully, and Angie is doing that really well, and she is updating us in the finance committee every month and giving us like data, so we can see what is going to happen in 6 months from now or in 12 months from now. But I think like what happened now in April with Drupal Cares is that definitely gave us the funds that we needed to be able to be where we are today, and for the staff to be able to perform and focus on the DrupalCon. So maybe to you, Angie or Heather, if you want to add something from the financial side, how you see it in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah,
I'll let you talk short term, and then I'll pipe in on long.
Sure. Drupal Cares definitely got us to a place where I feel we're good for this year, and moving into next year. We are in a position also that we were able to receive a payroll protection loan, which gives us a little bit of risk mitigation, which is great. The challenge, and I'll let Heather talk more about this, is the uncertainty that comes with the continued pandemic and how that is really impacting everyone, not just the Drupal Association. So there's a lot of unknowns there, but I think we're in a good place to be entering that, really in large part thanks to that. And also this event has gone really well. We're hitting our goals. I haven't done the final reconciliation. We're still selling tickets, But it looks like we're pretty close to meeting our goals there. So that all of that really helps. And I feel that we're in good shape to tackle the challenges that lay ahead.
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge when we talk about are we good and what does that mean long term, we're making smart decisions as a team and as a board about, I see something coming in talking about investments, and we'll talk about that. How do we create efficiencies? Even though Adam mentioned we're a fairly small staff for the amount of work we do, so it's already my degree's in efficiency, basically. So we're about as efficient as we can get without just having to not do something tomorrow. So efficiency we've got under control. It's the how do you then scale and grow and meet the needs of the community and the project. And so the challenge is the DA, as Dries said, he founded it, and it was founded to host DrupalCon, right? I mean, that was the original intent. So you're talking about a nonprofit organization who was designed with DrupalCon funding being 100% of the budget, right? And so that's kind of how we came out of the gate. Well, we know that having any large portion of your budget tied to one event is not sustainable long term. And so the association, long before I got here, has been working to make that less, right? And so now we're at more of a 60% of funding, right? Which is a lot better, but still keeps me up at night because I want it more like 30. A best practice is no more than a third of your budget comes from a single source of funding. So that's where we want to go. It doesn't happen overnight. We're working on it slowly but surely. But that's where things like supporting partner program and Drupal Steward and other programs that we bring to the community and to our partners that are not only mission centric, but sources of funding help us diversify and create a safer path moving forward. So there's less dependency on DrupalCon, and we're doing it, but we're also doing a lot of different things that are bringing in funding because we don't know what 2021 will bring. But some of the nice thing about needing to do DrupalCon virtually this year is we're learning a lot of things so that depending on what 2021 brings to our doorstep, we're going to be ready. We're going to be a lot more prepared than we were this time to do what we need to do and to be flexible. And, hybrid may be the way of the future. So we're looking to that too.
Yeah, there's sort of just a cap that I want to put on the finance piece, which is that as we look forward, I think it's easy to think about, well, money's coming in, what happens to that money, right? And what I think it's important, the board is aware of this, certainly the staff is aware of this. That's an opportunity to invest in the community. That's literally what we do with the money. And so, it's not about, kind of how big of an organization can we grow or any of that. It's where does the community want to go? How are we thinking about just good trusteeship of Drupal and where it wants to go and how we support that much larger ecosystem. Those are the conversations that we have when we talk about, we want to do this activity so that we can generate this revenue so that we can turn right around and reinvest it right back into the community. And I just want to make sure that folks are clear on that. So that helps set up sort of the second part of the question, which is, about changes. And that the board has routinely, and obviously the staff works on routinely as well, in terms of what's our strategy, where are we headed, what are some of those investments that we want to make, and so we obviously. So I see this, speaking for myself as the chair, I see these moments as an opportunity to really have a conversation about what matters most. And where do we want to go, and what are some changes that maybe we've been deferring, where it creates an opportunity to really think, to really start to think a little bit differently. And I'll give you just one example of this, which is we've been hearing from agency owners for a long time that they would like some kind of certification, and we've also been hearing from people, contributors, that they want contributions to be much more broad in scale, contributing that it's not that it goes well beyond code, and that people want it to be frictionless. So this creates an opportunity for us to have those conversations about how do we accelerate into those kinds of priorities. And obviously, as we broaden the revenue base, it's not about shrinking DrupalCon, it's about broadening the base overall. We can then start to make those kinds of investments. I don't know if others have comments on this sort of general area.
Other thoughts on it?
So I have one generic comment, which is one of the things I've seen is that a lot of organizations that are going through this had like plans to evolve their business models and they're now forced to accelerate it in sort of a crash transformation almost. And it's very similar here, where we had plans to diversify in time and we've been slowly diversifying as well. So we have been executing on this, but this definitely, as mentioned, kind of raises the question, like, how can we go faster? Because, we have to. So I think what we're going through is very healthy and not unlike many other organizations in the world right now, right? So I'm personally very excited about the Drupal Steward program as an example of something that we recently launched that can help.
There's a quick follow-up question that I think is relevant to the financial discussion, and I'm not sure how publicly we tend to discuss these details, but I'll ask it for maybe Batty or Angie. Matthew asks, how many months of cash reserves or what percentage of cash reserves do we usually try and keep on hand for the association?
So I can
go ahead, Batty.
Yeah, no, Angie, please start. No, please start.
Yeah, so, at minimum, a good best practice for a nonprofit is 3 months of operating cash. That's kind of a base level. I'd like to have at least a year as a goal that we build toward. As of the end of May, we're a bit over 5 months of operating cash. We're probably a bit higher than that now, but I'm kind of in the midst of closing out the month of June, along with DrupalCon. So it's about 5.5, 6 months at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna add to.
But then towards the end of the year,
yeah,
it goes back down.
We have a cash flow trend line that sort of trends up as we get into DrupalCon, and then that kind of keeps us going until we launch ticket sales and sponsorships for the next cycle, and then it starts trending back up again and then goes back down. So as we diversify revenue, I expect that to be a little bit less of a big spike.
Yeah, I want to also add to that. So and that's also one of the key things is that the restricted cash. So that's also monitored really carefully. So the cash that came in for Minneapolis last year, that was also kept. So we don't use that money until the conference then happens, because then the whole cost. So then we have to pay all the bills. So this is monitored really carefully. So the restricted cash and then the unrestricted cash, and we get like data from Angie every month on that. There's also uncertainties of how, for example, the payroll protection role that Angie talked about earlier, or Adam. It's also uncertainties of, are we getting, can we keep that, or do we have to pay it back? There's also these things that we don't know yet. But this is then always monitored in a way and kept on the side, just in case we need to give that money back in a couple of months. So I hope that answers the question, Matthew.
Awesome. We've got another question here that's kind of about the current event and the grand experiment of taking DrupalCon Global. Having experienced how well this went, we sort of alluded to the fact that we'll probably do some kind of hybrid model, or at least be prepared because of the uncertainty in the future. But what do we think about having a regular virtual DrupalCon, even if there is no pandemic, once we get out of that situation? Josh says, I love the inclusiveness it allows. I don't want it to be always online, but I'd like the ability for people to be a part. Heather, maybe you have some initial comments?
I do. I have comments and feelings about this topic only because we're navigating it as we go, right? So one of the comments I got along the way was, aren't you so glad it's online? It must be so much less work. And that it may appear that way. It does not that is not the life we have lived leading up to this, right? So even an online conference is still a lot of work. In theory, you also have lower overhead and fixed costs when you do an online conference, but the flip side to that is people honestly don't want to pay very much to attend, right? So when we look at DrupalCon as our primary source of funding, an online model to make up that gap, absent another Drupal Cares campaign, which we don't want to have to do again next year, right? There's still a cash differential. So we have to look at, how do we balance? I love the accessibility of this. You know, one of the things I was so excited about was the fact that we could be global. People could attend from different time zones. We could have so many more scholarship attendees. Accessibility is key. And so that part's great. How do we do these things, but also still meet the funding that's necessary to help the organization? So I think we'll be looking at, you know, we work with a company called Quoni that helps us manage and produce DrupalCon Europe. And they're looking at the idea of the hybrid model, right? So if we had the people that can get here in the room, and then the idea that everybody else can join online. But as they're looking at that, it's twice the amount of work and not nearly twice the amount of funding to fund the work that it takes to do it. So we're going to learn a little bit from people that are doing this the second half of this year, because this is good. This is going to be something happening all the time. And we're going to look at, how do we do it? I will say, aside from replacing a DrupalCon, I think we now know about having these tools, about what is useful to the community. What are things we can do online that supplement what we're doing, right? So it's less about, let's, you know, flip in-person out and flip virtual in, and then it's 100% one or the other. But what are ways that we can bring content, community, and contribution opportunities to our global Drupal community on a more regular basis by using something like this? So those are the conversations we're having internally as well.
I would just add to this in the sense that I think there is again, Drupal is about the community as much as it is about the software, and there is an intangible but clearly present magic when we bring people together physically. And so while I'm certainly intrigued and supportive of a hybrid model, or, you know, that we do some virtual, my view, speaking as an individual, the board really has not had a long conversation about this, but my view is that, you know, I want to be in Boston and DrupalCon to be really successful, and because I want us to be together as a community as much and as well as this particular program is going. And again, I think there are opportunities to build out and do additional virtual work, and that's what we're learning. But I want us to be there. I just think it keeps the community healthy and strong. And I
have some thoughts too, which are aligned, but maybe my own words. I think one of the reasons why the Drupal community is so successful and why some people have stuck around for so long is because these in-person events, to be honest. I think as much as I love the advantages of virtual, and I really do, in terms of inclusiveness, in terms of making things more accessible for people, and frankly, it gives me more sleep. There is real value in these long evenings and these in-person sessions where you create real friendships and camaraderie that I still feel is hard to replace with an online. So at the end of the day, I think it's about pros and cons. And I think having a mix of both seems like a really powerful combination, as Heather mentioned. And then, yeah, there's a financial piece too. You know, it's probably easier to make money with in-person events, which then helps Drupal in another way too. So I think all of these need to be considered. But I can't wait to go back to in-person events and see people in person. As much as I love this, and it's not criticism on this platform by any means. I think it's been fantastic and works really, really well. And it's kind of amazed me all day yesterday. But yeah, I just love seeing people in person, you know, and I can't wait to see more people in person.
Awesome. So next question that we have is about the kind of change in strategy on Drupal itself and what the board's feelings are on that. So Erwin asks, since Drupal 8, the learning curve has gotten difficult, it becomes essential for often used modules. That means that you have to learn the command line interface. You may need a staging environment. There's high composer memory requirements. Some people are still struggling, and some people may have perhaps even departed the community. So what is the board's vision in general on how we address this or accept this, or what we want to do about this evolution of Drupal itself and our role in managing that community? And I think maybe, I know Dries will have words to say, but I'm curious if Suzanne has some thoughts as someone who's done training with a lot of Drupal users and things like that.
So I think with the sort of evolution of how Drupal works, the fact that there's just less difference from one version to another, it's nice for newcomers to know that when they're investing in learning a new platform, that they don't have to reinvest that every 4 years when a new version comes out. I'm excited too that the association's getting involved in doing some more work in piloting this program to onboard a lot of new users from different backgrounds and kind of getting training companies to work together to deliver that. I don't know if that answers the question.
Audra, you seem to have a comment.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, I think from a board point of view, you know, one of our big strategic goals is to support the kind of improved ease of use, and total cost of ownership, you know, when organizations are adopting Drupal. So, you know, as the board control the product roadmap for Drupal, we you know, kind of provide the strategy for the Drupal Association, which is here to support the Drupal project. So, you know, one of our goals as a board and as an organization for the, you know, our strategy for the Drupal Association is to drive that wherever possible. So hopefully that kind of adds on to what others have said.
Cool. Any additional thoughts? Dries, did you want to comment on that at all, or does that cover your feelings as well? Oh, I think Dries' screen may have frozen right as I asked that question. Oh, well, okay. So I'm going to drop briefly to another question. Maybe we can come back if Dries has thoughts there after he rejoins. So one question, Benji asks, there's been a lot of really valuable conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion at this DrupalCon. However, looking at the screen, there are a lot of white faces on the screen at where we are at the moment. So Adam or Audra, would someone be interested in speaking to the diversity of the board itself, whether that's geographic, racial, gender, maybe the current state, and how the board thinks about these things?
Yeah, I'd be happy to get the conversation started. And I know Dries, who's on the nominating committee here? I'm just trying to remember. I know
Batty and Dries can speak to that as well.
So you all want to talk about sort of kind of the committee level, and then we can talk more philosophically about it from a values perspective. Does that make sense?
Sorry, Adam, you broke up just a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Batty and Dries, if you kind of want to talk from a kind of committee level about, you know, sort of not necessarily about the process, but kind of about how we think about criteria and that sort of thing. And then I'm happy to speak more generally.
I can start. So, you know, the nominating committee, we kind of make a list of criteria and we look at expertise and skill set, but we also look at diversity, you know, regional diversity, gender diversity, all aspects of diversity are actually being considered. And then we do our best to try and recruit candidates. We actually spend a good amount of time doing outreach to different people, trying to convince them to join our boards. And you know, I think this group on the what is this called, on the Huppens is actually probably not the best representation, because we do have some people of color on the boards. They just don't happen to be on this meeting, or not in the not in the video chat. But there's no denying that we need to continue to do better and continue to try and build a much more diverse board. Overall, I'm actually pretty proud of what we've done so far in terms of creating a diverse board. And again, that doesn't mean we can do better, but we've really tried hard to try and improve diversity of our board over time. And we'll continue to really focus on that going forward.
Patty, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I agree, and you know, just to a little bit make funny. So we talk about like Dries, for example. We sometimes we put him in the, you know, is he in the US or is he in Europe? Is he, you know, when we are counting the Europeans, you know, we are not sure if Dries is like, is he one of the Europeans or not? But like, for example, Owen, he's sleeping at the moment because he's in Australia, and that's extremely challenging for him, of course, to be attending on the board meetings that are very often taking place either very late for him or very early. But we, you know, we make that happen, and that's really good. So either Owen stays up a bit longer or wakes up a bit earlier to be able to attend the meetings. Same as with Vishal in India. So we try our best, and I think we have a really good group now. And it's also like important that every year there's people that go out of the board and there come new people in, both elected from the community, always 2. And then also there's just terms end after 3 years. And then we also always try to look at like who is going, and then how can we replace those seats, thinking about it. Is there an agency background? Is it a background from a developer? Is it a background from this region? Or so we look at it all, and we try to map that together in our meetings. And yeah.
And I would just add, more from a philosophical perspective, it's absolutely fair to judge us by our results in this regard. And as patient board, there has been a clear focus on diversity by sex, and half the board or more has been female, which is great, and certainly unusual, particularly for a technology community. This is something that I study, you know, and it's because we were focused on that. And we've been looking for the last 2 or 3 years on obviously other more broad measures of diversity as well. And we're starting to make progress. And I don't want to say it takes time, because that sounds like I'm just sort of pushing forward. We'll get there when we get there. That's not where the conversation starts. The conversation really starts at a board level from where are we, where do we want to go next? Are we continuing to diversify the board? And are we hitting the metrics that established in terms of board diversity? So this is not I don't want you to think there's sort of some closed room somewhere where we're like, yeah, well, you know, those people, we'll get back to them later kind of thing. That's not the way this conversation takes place. And I want to be unambiguous and clear about that. The conversation starts with, what are we doing to diversify the board? What are our goals? Where are we? And how does that fit into this larger matrix of the skill set that we also need to make sure we have on the board as well? And if we were having this conversation 5 years ago, I think the conversation would be about skill set, and it'd be okay if we had some diversity. And what I want people to understand is that that conversation has really flipped. So we're not using, quote, merit, however you might want to define that, as an excuse.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam, and Dries as well. We have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. I'm going to do my best to pick some of the interesting ones here. Ruby asks, because of the constrained resources, is the DA considering of finding ways to lean on different kinds of community leadership or volunteer organization strategies that maybe we aren't doing today to kind of increase that engagement and help the project and the association?
Touch on that for a minute and then let others jump in. So I think that, the fact that we've got limited resources and the number of people, and again, we have the right number of people to do what we need to do today, but it's looking at where do we need to grow and be able to scale, right? And what does that look like? I've worked for several nonprofit organizations, and you never scale your staff completely to do all the things you need to do. There's just never resources and funding to do that. So really effective nonprofit organizations that want to be able to scale and grow have to do that through a really robust volunteer program. And so one of the things that drew me to Drupal is that piece is baked in. Contributions, the whole model of open source, the willingness to help is there, and this is a very strong volunteer community. And I think that things like DrupalCon don't happen without volunteer support, right? So I think we're always looking at ways where we can bring the community in and collaborate. I think where we have an opportunity moving forward is to be really strategic in our volunteer program. And so what I mean by that is the nonprofits that I've worked with that were really successful not only had volunteer engagement, but they really nurtured and looked at what that meant. So they looked at who are the people, where are they, do they have the skills they need, or do we need to provide them additional training to be successful? Are we moving people through volunteer opportunities? Or are the same people sitting in the same seats all the time? Because that doesn't grow and nurture your community either. So we're looking at how we do those things. We're also looking at strategically where can the community fit in? And I can't think of anything where the community wouldn't be able to collaborate with us or where that wouldn't make sense. It's a matter of finding the right people with the right bandwidth, with the right skill sets, and the right time of life, right? And how we move them through and train them. One of the things that we're hoping to roll out end of this year, early next year, is what we're calling internally our strategic volunteering program. So that's really how do we put more structure around what we're asking of the community, so it's easier for you as a community member to say, oh, those are the things that interest me, that matches my time availability, ooh, I have those skill sets, I want to get those skill sets, that's going to grow me as a person. Because my ideal volunteer opportunity for the Drupal community is you're getting as much out of it as you're putting in, if not more. So, we've got to really look at how are we creating that structure so that it's not just us getting resources in the door to help us get things done, but are we growing the community and enabling future Drupal leaders by the way that we cultivate that path and that training. So I think that it's never an issue of not wanting to collaborate or not having the opportunity to collaborate. I think there are things that make more sense and things that make less sense depending on tactical versus strategic. And I think that what we want to do is open up the community to do some of the little things that are very tactical, but we really want to look at how can we bring you into things that are more strategic so that you're growing and learning and that it's really a good use of your time.
And I can just kind of back that up a little bit to say that it's also one of the kind of main strategic objectives that we have is to make sure that we've got the right framework in place so that the staff, can kind of make the most of what the community can offer, and also that the community kind of gets what it needs from that as well.
I think one thing we have to keep in mind when we look at this and as we grow and scale is what is our definition of community? And so some people look at community as the developers or the community, and some people look at community as the DA members or the community. I look at community as in everyone that engages with Drupal is part of that community. So that may be developers, it may be business leaders, and it's everybody in between. And quite frankly, our community is stronger when we bring people from outside of our traditional Drupal bubble, as we call it, which is, it's the bubble's full of love and it's full of great people. But the more we talk about diversity and inclusion, right, that means bringing other people in, and getting new thought perspectives and new ideas. And so I think if we broaden our sense of what we mean by community, then we'll start to see there really is a lot of engagement. But it's how do we really make everybody feel like they've got a place and a home and they're engaging in a way that's meaningful to them.
I'll add just one anecdotal comment as a staff member who works with community a lot, and sort of on behalf of the staff. I don't think there's a single person on staff who doesn't have multiple significant community interactions every day with almost every project that they work on. You know, even operationally, if it's support or like the kind of invoicing work or membership support, like literally every role within the association winds up with some community interaction. And what Heather's talking about in like old school Drupal terms is kind of like moving the way we organize ourselves from this BOF style self-organized model of how we each interact to something more structured, which I think would really help file off the rough edges around the way we do some of those interactions. So we are basically out of time, and there are some great questions still left that I would love to be able to share, but I think I'll hand it to Adam for the moment to give a closing statement, and if anybody wants to hang out for a few moments to look at questions, they certainly can. But
yeah, I just want to return to where we started and also build from this last topic, about the community. And if anything, I'm not talking about the board or the staff, although I think that's true, but I think the community, as much as any other group, has really demonstrated extraordinary resilience, and really, and again, it's my sort of funny line is that we did not have in our accounting system at the beginning of the pandemic a clear line for just financial contributions. So we were starting from a relatively low place, and for us to in 30 days raise $500,000 to close that the Drupal Association could continue to meet its mission is, yes, there was a lot of staff time put into it. Yes, there was a lot of board time put into it. I don't want to but it was the community's response, led by Dries and Vanessa and agency owners that, came together and said, this is important. We're going to make this happen. And to be able to go from, zero to $500,000 in 30 days is just incredibly remarkable. And again, it's about our ability to then turn around and reinvest that right back into the community. So I just want to end with my own sense of appreciation. I don't know if Dries or if others just have any other closing thoughts as well.
No, I think that was well said, Adam. I'm very proud of what the staff did, actually. It's amazing when this happens, it hits you hard. And, I could imagine a lot of other people running for the hills. I don't know if that's the right expression, or throwing in the towel, but the EA staff does the exact opposite. I mean, they dig in, they hunker down, and they get it done. And so I think we should all be very grateful about how this was managed. So it's pretty amazing to see. That was too many analogies probably in one statement, but
it was great. That's great. And just on behalf of the team, I'm very proud of the team. Dries, as you just said, it takes a lot of work, and just when not a lot of teams have to go from one challenge to the other, literally back to back, and still have the energy and enthusiasm they do. So I thank them very much. But one thing that we constantly talk about as a team is the fact that, the community inspires and energizes us. And so we're so thankful that people came to DrupalCon Global, because we weren't real sure there for a little while. So that you're here and that we get to do so many things together. And And you know, it's just every dollar, every contribution, every volunteer hour, all those things add up to make an incredible project and community, and we're very thankful for everybody's efforts.
Official time is wrapped up. We'll have to let these wonderful folks go, but thank you again for attending and listening to us. We really appreciate all that. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for coming.